truly masterful compositions by game music ace Saori Kobayashi.
And a soundtrack from the gods.
The soundtrack is excellent. It complements the dark, gritty nature of the plot.
There is only one word to describe the music in this game, and that is amazing. Just truly amazing.
Saga's soundtrack is the crowning achievement, even in series renowned.
This is an excellent soundtrack for this game. The standout tracks in it are unforgettable.
The soundtrack is eminently listenable on its own merits.
And I believe that is the main reason why this game stands out so much, and because of this truly amazing soundtrack.
Music is outstanding in Panzer Dragoon Saga.
This is just a great soundtrack. If you're into video game music, it's definitely worth listening to.
I love this soundtrack. It is awesome.
Shadowgate 64 soundtrack really knows what it's doing.
The music, the graphics, and the story all do such a great job at creating a world that really does feel cold, isolated, gloomy, and haunted.
That's my favourite element of the game, is the fantastic music.
Beautiful music. Is the music's epic.
Just a generally outstanding use of sound.
Tremendous music that casts a wide net of instrumentation.
The soundtrack is great. An ambient brewing showcase that captures that epic scale of the adventure and pumps you up for those boss
This is by far my favorite soundtrack of the series, and I found myself listening to it countless times.
The music is just as good as the game. Outstanding.
The soundtrack was beyond mesmerizing.
The soundtrack is one of gaming's finest.
The soundtrack of this game also plays a huge role.
The soundtrack in Panzer Dragoon Orta is very sophisticated.
The music is freaking phenomenal.
Elation and jubilation, gamers from all around the world. I am Lucian and this is the World Gamer Show. And today I have the greatest honor of having two very special guests here with me on my channel. It is with immense pleasure that I welcome Mrs. Saori Kobayashi, composer of many great gaming soundtracks, including that of the Panzer Dragoon series, and her manager and English interpreter, Mr. Alexander Aniel. Thank you very much for accepting to be here with me today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's great to be here. はい、本日そうですね、ゲストとして、はい、出ていただきありがとうございます。はい、小林さんと一度お話しすることができてとても光栄です。ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, without further formalities, I'd say let's dive right in, because I have many questions for Kobayashi-sama and I am super excited, so forgive me if I shake sometimes. I have, of course, gathered a few notes to help me, so I'd say I'd start with the first question.
では、早速ですが、最初の質問を聞かせていただきます。
はい。
So, how did you fall in love with music, with what you do, and when did you start composing? Like a little bit, tell us a little bit about your origin story in a way.
小林さんは音楽を好きになったきっかけと作曲を始めたのはいつ頃でしたでしょうか？
いつからっていうのはあんまり自分でも意識がないんですけど、物心ついた頃に音楽が好きで、音符もまだわからない頃から聴いた曲を真似して歌ったり、キーボードを弾いたりしていて、小学校に入ってからはもうピアノをきちんと習い出した頃にはもう作曲もしてました。
So I can't even really pinpoint the exact timing of when I started liking music. I remember like listening to music when I was very young and imitating and singing that music that I would listen to. And then I would, after that I played the keyboard a little bit. I started studying music formally in elementary school.
Okay, nice. And then at a certain point, you ended up at Sega. And I was wondering, how did it come to be? Like, how did it happen? And what was it to work at Sega like during the 90s?
そうですね。その後セガに入社されたと思うんですけれども、セガで仕事をした経験について教えていただけますでしょうか？
そもそもセガに入る前に 友達の立ち上げた会社で音楽制作の仕事してたんですね。で、そこで作ってた曲が評価されてセガに入ることになりました。で、入ってからは、その頃はゲームギアとメガドライブが主流で、サターンが出る少し前ですね。で、入社してすぐ、ゲームギアの音楽制作の仕事をしましたね。シルバンテレとかソニックドリフトとかドナルドダックのやつ作りました。
So before I joined Sega, I was working at a company that my friend had established, and I was making music there. Because the music that I made there was quite well liked, I eventually was able to join Sega. I joined Sega around the time the Game Gear and the Mega Drive were the main consoles at the time. This was a little bit before the Sega Saturn came out. So in my early days at Sega, I spent a lot of time composing for Game Gear games like Sylvan's Tale, Sonic Drift, and Donald Duck.
Nice. And what's your fondest memory of composing music for video games? And what was your favorite game for which you've composed the soundtrack?
ゲーム音楽の作曲の中で一番好きな、思い出は何だと思いますか？そして自分の作曲したゲームの中で一番好きなものは何だと思いますか？
やっぱりパンツァードラグーンですね。世界観がすごく好きで、まだゲームギアの仕事してる時から、もうすでにそのパンツァーチームが、ある意味私の横で作ってるのを見てて、もしこのゲームが、シューティングですからね、このゲームが RPG になったら、ぜひやりたいなって思っていましたね。
Yeah, I would definitely say Panzer Dragoon is the game that I like working on the most because I'm very into the kind of world that is featured in the game. The production for that title started even while I was still working on Game Gear games. The Panzer Dragoon team was actually like next to me working on that game, and I became very interested in composing for the franchise when I found out that the next game in the series was going to be an RPG rather than a shooting title.
I agree. Panzer Dragoon Saga, which of course was released in 1998 for the Sega Saturn, was also personally the first time that I came into contact with your music, with you as a composer. And needless to say that I love the soundtrack. And I think that especially for an RPG, it's very important to have a soundtrack that stands out and carries those emotional moments. So my question is, can you tell us something about the creative process behind this amazing soundtrack and what memories you have of those times?
そうですね、私自身1998年に発売されたセガサターン用ソフト、アゼルパンツァードラグーン RPG が私最初にプレイした小林さんのゲームになりましたけれども、そのサウンドトラックがかなり、大好きです。RPG ではやっぱり覚えやすいメロディとか人たちのなんていうの感情に触れない音楽じゃないと触れる音楽じゃないといけないと思うんですね。そう感じているので本当に素晴らしいサウンドトラックだと思います。はい。So what was your question? I'm sorry, what was your question again?
Sorry, it was pretty long. I'm sorry. So the question was a little bit about the creative process behind the soundtrack and what memory does she have of those times specifically with Panzer Dragoon Saga?
そうですね、アゼルのサウンドトラックの制作過程についてお聞かせください。どうやってアゼルの曲を作りましたでしょうか？どのようにしてこういう音源にしたのでしょうか？教えてください。
はい。アゼルは3作目になるので、それをその1と2の流れを継いでサウンドを保つっていうのは結構苦労しましたね。1と2はシューティングなんですけど、 まあ、それでもツバイの方はまだ物語性が強かったので、ツバイの流れを踏襲しました。で、そうですね。それまで、あんまり、RPG 好きとは言っても、あんまりこういう系統のものやってなかったので、ものすごい勉強しましたね。この時期に作った音楽が、まあ今の私の音楽の方向を決めてると言っても過言ではありません。はい。
So, Panzer Dragoon Saga was the third game in the franchise. So, at that point, the series had a fairly established sound identity. So, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to approach the third game. And even though I was interested because the third game was going to be an RPG rather than a shooter, I actually didn't have much experience in RPG music at the time. So then I had to do a lot of studying and research in order to figure out what the game would inevitably or eventually sound like. And I think the music that I created around this time ended up carving out my path, one that I'm still on today, in terms of the kind of music I would become known for.
Great. Thank you very much. So, still a little bit more about Panzer Dragoon Saga. You are probably aware that it is a very rare game. It is very hard to emulate, was never re-released. So not many people could actually experience it. And yet, the soundtrack for that game has gathered tons of views and likes on YouTube, like thousands and thousands, which is a testament to how a soundtrack can survive its own game. And it's safe to say that there are many more views than probably people who play the game. So my question is, how does it make you feel that so few people heard the soundtrack within its original context of the game?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry. The last part.
Don't worry. Sorry, they're being pretty long, but so there are more people, in terms of number probably, listen to the soundtrack than people who actually play the game because of its rarity. So how does this make Kobayashi-sama feel about the fact that many gamers listen to the soundtrack but didn't actually play the game, so they couldn't listen to it within the context of the game?
そうですね、アゼルパンツァードラグーン RPG っていう、ゲームなんですけれども、本当にあんまり売れなかったので、実際にセガサターンでプレイした人数が割と少ないのではないでしょうか。なのにサントラの方がYouTube なんかで視聴回数が非常に多いんですね。いいねしてくれてる方も非常に多いですし、実はですね、YouTube で音楽を視聴した人数は、実際のゲームよりもかなり多いのではないかと思いますね。でそれに対して小林さんはどう思いますか？ゲームではなくてYouTube の動画で音楽をなんていうの体験したっていうかゲームであんまり体験できてないのに、YouTube とかで音楽を聴くことができて、そういうことに対してどう思いますか？
いやー、それはすごく嬉しいですね。大体ゲーム知ってないとね、やっぱり曲に触れることはないし、聴くことはないし、それをゲームを除いても良かったっていうことですよね。それはもうそんな光栄なことはないですね。いやもう嬉しいの一言につきます。それは。
I'm actually extremely happy to hear that. If you don't really play games, often you might miss the opportunity to encounter a very nice game soundtrack. So I'm really glad that there are people out there who've come to enjoy the Panzer Dragoon Saga soundtrack, even if they haven't played the game. And I'm really happy that, and very honored for that matter, that there are people out there enjoying the music that I made, even if they can't play the game themselves.
Yes, that is most definitely the case. And I'm sorry again for the long questions. So to make you forgive myself, now that is a very short question. So, do you ever play the video games that you worked on, or video games in general?
小林さんは自分の作曲したゲームをプレイしていますか？
でも、パンツァーは、アゼルはいっぱいプレイしました。まあ、やっぱり私自身もこのパンツァーが大好きだし、世界観大好きなので、ゲームを楽しみつつ、自分の音楽どうかなっていうのをチェックしつつっていう感じで、結構ね、何回もやりましたね。
So Panzer Dragoon Saga is a game that I've actually played many times because I quite like the game and the world in it. And, there are times when I really wanted to see how my music turned out in the game, if the music that I made was really okay or not. So yeah, I did play Panzer Dragoon Saga a lot in particular.
シューティングじゃなかったですからね。
And it's also not a shooting game, so that's also why I played it a lot. I'm quite bad at shooting games.
Great. Yes, and you also come to compose soundtracks for other Panzer Dragoon titles like Orta and a remake of the first Panzer Dragoon, which is pretty recent. It's dated 2020. So my question is, Kobayashi-sama, how is it different to create music now compared to before? And how did technical limitations of the hardware of yesteryears influenced or affected your way of composing music?
そうですね。小林さんはアゼルのみならず、後から発売されたパンツァードラグーンオルタや、最近2020年に発売されたパンツァードラグーンリメイクの音楽も制作したと思うんですけれども、昔と現在の音楽制作に関して比較してみればどう思いますか？
もちろんやっぱり昔はサターンの音源を使って、そういう制限のある中で作ってたので、今はそれがもう全部取っ払われちゃって、もう好きなだけ使えるっていう状況で曲が作れるわけですよね。でもだからどっちがいいっていうのはあんまり、私的にはあんまり感じてなくて、その制限のある時の方がむしろガーッとなんか集中していいものができることもあるし、制限が取れちゃったところで必ずしも素晴らしい曲ができるっていうわけでもないので、私的にはそんなに大きな違いはないように思ってます。
I think that composing or having composed for the Sega Saturn was a very interesting experience because it was one where I had to work within the limitations of that hardware and the type of sound that the Saturn hardware was able to offer. Nowadays, we're practically limitless in terms of our technical resources, in terms of composing music. But, in terms of choosing which one is better, to be honest, I actually think that having technical limitations does kind of compel you to invest more into what you're trying to make and do ultimately the best that you can do within those set of limitations. And I think, the inverse to that is just because you have all the technology at your disposal, it doesn't necessarily mean that the music you make is going to be good on that basis alone. So I think that ultimately there's really no difference in how I approach music production comparing now and then.
Thanks. So does this mean that Kobayashi-sama loves challenges?
小林さんは、いつもなんていうか、壁に挑戦したいっていう気分ですか？
そうですね。いや、まあ、楽してはできないですよね、これはね。壁にぶつかっていかないと。
Yeah, I would say that's probably accurate. I don't think this is a very easy profession to be in to begin with. So I think having some element of challenge is a motivator for me.
Great. But I'd say now enough about Panzer Dragoon and Sega for at least a little bit, because I would like to focus on your other projects, if that's okay with you. So you have a solo album and you have a band, AKANE. So now I know about it, but maybe if you would like to introduce this project to our viewers, like what is AKANE?
ではですね、パンツァードラグーンやセガ時代の話を一旦放っておいて、他の活動について聞かせてください。はい、ではですね、AKANEというバンドのメンバーの一人ではあると思うんですけれども、AKANEを紹介していただけますか？
AKANEの紹介ですか？
はい。
私と幻想水湖伝のボーカルの高橋由美子と2人で、そうですね。彼女は日本民謡を歌う人なので、そういう日本の文化的な音楽と電子的なサウンド、あるいはパンツァーっぽいサウンドをいろいろ合体させて、なんかちょっと新しい種類の無国籍な音楽ができたらいいなということで始めたグループです。いいでしょうか、こんなところで。
So AKANE is a two-person band that comprises of me and Takahashi Yumiko, the vocalist for the Suikoden franchise. So Takahashi specializes in Japanese folk music. And her specialty is really about like those cultural or traditional or cultural and traditional sounds that people might often associate with Japan. And we decided to join forces and make music together because we wanted to make something that adhered to that Japanese folklore cultural type of music while trying to make something new sounding at the same time.
Great. Thank you very much. So, and look, it's true. I loved the Journey album, and that was released through the record label Brave Wave. It is personally my favorite album, and I implore our viewers to go and check it out because it's truly the stuff of legends. And it also has special guests like Mr. Nobuo Uematsu of Final Fantasy fame, and of course it has, as you said, the vocal talent of Takahashi Yumiko, which I've always loved, especially in Suikoden 2. So the question is, Kobayashi-sama, what are your fondest memories of recording that specific album? What was the inspiration behind it, and how was it to work with these other legends of Nobuo Uematsu and Takahashi Yumiko?
ブレイブウェブより発売された、AKANEのAKANEのアルバムですね。2つ目のアルバム、AKANE道中端、ジャーニーに関してなんですけれども、私は個人的にとっても大好きなアルバムです。私は本当に気に入っていて、視聴者の皆さんにも聴いていただきたいというふうに思います。で、そのアルバムには小林さんだけでなく、もちろん上松信夫さんのもゲストとして参加していただいてたりとかですね、高橋さんも参加していると思うんですけれども、ジャーニーを収録した際の、一番いい思い出は何だと思いますか？
ジャーニーの前にね、一つ自力でこちらへというアルバムを作ってたんですけど、ジャーニーは ちょっと大変だったんですね。高橋さんもともと日本民謡を歌う人だったので、この組み合わせが合うなということで作ってたんですけども、ジャーニーの場合は、さらに物語性を加えて、それをうんと強く押し出したアルバムだったんですね。で、どうやってこれを出そうか1年くらい悩んでて、もちろんやっぱりそういうサウンドなんでなかなか受け入れてもらえないんで、そこでブレイブウェーブに出会えて、無事出してもらえたっていうのが非常にありがたかったというか、で、結果的に植松さんもいいよって言ってくれて、で、その時クリムゾンドラゴンがマイクロソフトから出てたんですけど、そこからもクリムゾンドラゴンの曲、私が作ったパートの部分を使っていいというような許可ももらえて、結構盛りだくさんにいろんなことをさせてもらえた、すごくいいアルバムになったと思うんですね。もうなんか結構今考えるとなんかちょっと奇跡的かもしれないって思うぐらいだと思います。
So, Journey was the second album I released under AKANE, and I remember it being a very difficult experience to get to the point of release because we had a really hard time like finding a label that was willing to publish it because the type of music that was in it originally was the Japanese folk music. And we had a really hard time soliciting any interest in it. But at some point, I was very lucky to become a part of Brave Wave. And Brave Wave was very interested in releasing the album. So thankfully, I was able to get Uematsu-san's permission to release the album as well. And so once Brave Wave agreed to release it, we ended up adding a few things to it, like one of the songs that I wrote for Crimson Dragon, the game that Microsoft released around that time. And you know, they let us use the Crimson Dragon music as well. So eventually, that ended up going into the album as well. And honestly, yeah, it feels like it was almost fate that I was able to create and release this album in the way that it eventually was released in.
Yes, and I'm certainly thankful that it was released because for me it was, to be honest, a surprise how good it was. So I really again suggest you to go and check it out. And is there any touring planned, any live show?
キンキンライブとかをやる予定はありませんか？
ないですね。ただちょっとずいぶん間がもう空いてるので、ちょっとそろそろ何かやらなきゃなというのは考えています。来年にかけて。
We don't really have any plans at the moment, but it's been a while since we did anything, so I'm hoping that maybe next year we can get something going.
Fingers crossed. And so now we will give Kobayashi-sama a small break because I actually have a few questions directly to Aniel-sama. And of course, you can take your time to, of course, let her know what I will be asking you. So,
では、一旦小林さんに休憩していただきます。で、アレックスに、対して質問させていただきます。
But first, time for a small commercial break.
Aziel! 伝説のドラゴンと共に戦いの旅へパンツァードラグーン RPG アゼルセガサターン
So, Aniel-sama, you've also been involved with the creation of the Journey album, and you're also part, of course, of the Brave Wave label. And so, what's your role in both the album and more in general at Brave Wave?
Yes, so I am one of the founders of Brave Wave Productions, along with my co-founder Mohammed Taher, and it was originally his idea to start a gaming music label that supports Japanese game composers. We got started back in 2012, so it's actually been about 10 years since we've been doing this in some form. And my role on Journey, interestingly enough, it kind of goes back a little bit even before the establishment of Brave Wave, but I suggested to Mohammed that we reach out to Kobayashi-san and see if we could work together with her, because I knew that she was the composer of Panzer Dragoon, and the company that I was working at the time, we were actually developing Crimson Dragon. So that was how I became aware of Kobayashi-san's music for the first time. And I thought, hey, if we're going to start getting into this job of supporting Japanese game composers, why not have someone like Kobayashi-san, do some stuff for us? And I contacted her through a mutual friend of ours, and we got connected. And then after we became acquainted, she said to us that she was making music for her next album, the one that eventually became Journey. And she was looking for a label that would publish it. And she gave, I think, 1 or 2 demo tracks to us at the time. And I had Mohammed listen to it. I listened to it. I loved what I heard. Mohammed loved what he heard. And for us, it was a no-brainer to just, help make this happen. It was a bonus to have Uematsu-san's name on the album. It was a bonus to have Crimson Dragon music on the album. Nice things like that. So yeah, that's how I guess Brave Wave and Journey, the album, actually got started.
Fantastic. And Anil-sama, what's it like to work with Kobayashi-sama? How would you describe her?
I love working with Kobayashi-san because I think we're very good at communicating with each other. We both, I think, have a very strong work ethic, but we also have like a sense of humor, and we can crack jokes to each other, but also have very, very serious and meaningful conversations about a lot of different things. Kobayashi-san and I have traveled to a few countries together over the years. We went to Paris twice for Japan Expo. 1 year in which she actually performed on stage, which was a very massive and very fun thing to do. We traveled to Washington, D.C. together for MagFest in 2017, where she performed again. We also went to California, to San Jose, right in autumn 2019. We went to California together, where she performed at Mag West, another event there. So we've had a lot of really interesting travel experiences. One year we went to New York to record the Panzer Dragoon Saga 20th anniversary arrangement in an actual studio in Brooklyn with local musicians. So yeah, I've always enjoyed working together with her, and we definitely have some cool things planned in the future.
Great, looking forward to those then. And now back to Kobayashi-sama. I have a very general question for you. Will be short, promise. What's your usual method of composing music, and what's your ideal creative process?
では小林さんに、戻りますけれども、これ、とても一般的な、当たり前の質問なのかもしれないですけれども、普段どのような方法で作曲をされてるんですか？
曲を作るときは、まず自由にピアノ弾いてますね。で、楽器がなくても頭の中で音を想像して作ってることもあるんですけど、大体こういう時って外出中だったり、目の前だったりするんで、忘れてしまうことが多いです。あと意外なところでは、リズムパターンを組み立てて、リズム作るの好きなんですけど、リズムパターンを組み立ててて急に音が浮かぶこともあるので、そういう作り方もありますね。はい。
Yeah, it's hard to really pinpoint how I make music because it just sort of happens. Like I can play the piano obviously, so I can like if I know what kind of music I want to produce, I can try to do it on the piano. But there are times when something will just come to mind when I'm out and about walking around, like this melody comes to mind, and I gotta go and get back to the piano and go do it, go produce that music before I forget. And yeah, I think I'm very much into rhythm making as well. I like putting various rhythm patterns together to make new songs and new choruses and whatnot. So I think I tend to follow that kind of methodology as well, if you can call it that.
Great. And one last question about Panzer Dragoon. How does it feel to know that you've composed the soundtrack to some of the most classic and fan favorite games of all time, such as Panzer Dragoon Saga and Orta? Did you expect those to become the cult classics that are today?
そうですね。パンツァー、アゼル、パンツァードラグーン RPG とパンツァードラグーンオルタの音楽を作曲したのは小林さんですね。それに対して誇りに思いますかね。誇りに思いますか？
それはもうこの2つの作品に関われたのは大変光栄なことでした。
そしてこんなに人気になるということを思ってましたでしょうか、当時。
いや、全然思ってないですね、それは。もう自分も作るのにもう苦労の連続ですし、なんか制作者の意図に沿ってるのかどうかもあまりよくわからないし、もう不安な中で必死になって作ってたんで、もう今こうなってるっていうのがもう本当に信じられないというか、大変ありがたいというか、もう感謝しかないですね。ユーザーの皆様。
So I am very honored to have been the one to compose the music for Panzer Dragoon Saga and Panzer Dragoon Orta. It's really quite an honor and a privilege to be in this position. And obviously I had no idea they would ever reach this kind of level of popularity among users. Like, I honestly had no idea, because to me, when I was making these soundtracks, I was just doing my job, and they were very tough jobs at that. I felt like composing for both games was just a long struggle in a lot of ways, and I wasn't even sure like how the other people on the team felt about my music, or how fans felt about my music. So I had a little bit of worry about whether I was doing a good job or not. So I honestly cannot believe that we've kind of come to this, that we're in this position now where the music for those games is very well respected. I'm very grateful for the support that people have shown the music.
Great, thank you. And Kobayashi-sama, as you're quite obviously an accomplished musician and composer with a ton of success. So as a professional musician and composer, what would be your best suggestions to new and young and growing musicians? I've been sort of a musician myself, so anything you can share with me and our viewers and aspiring musicians will be gold.
小林さんはプロミュージシャンが、プロ作曲家として新人とか若い人たちに対してどのようなアドバイスがありますか？
音楽の講師の人ってことですよね。
そうです。はい、これから音楽を作ろうと考えてる若い人たちだったりとか、あんまり経験が浅い人たちとか、それに対してうまく音楽をよく作るようにどのようなアドバイスをしていただけますでしょうか？
作曲する人だけじゃなくて演奏する人にでもみんなもう決まったことを一つしか言えないんですけど、とにかく音楽をたくさん聴いてください。ジャンルを超えてどんなのでもで面白いと思ったらそれをどこまでも追求していくですね。諦めずに。
So my advice doesn't just apply to musicians, but I would also say to performers as well. But just listen to as much music as you can and try to absorb and embrace as much influence and musical styles out there as you can, because the best type of work you can make will be based on what you know and what your knowledge is. And I think that being able to research and listen to all sorts of different music will help you become the best possible musician.
Thanks. I find this an excellent advice. So thank you very much. And now something a little bit different. Are you in for some rapid fire questions?
では、すごく簡単な質問を連続で聞かせていただきます。はい。大丈夫ですか？
大丈夫です。
Alright, let's go. Go ahead.
Favorite color?
カラー。
好きな色は
緑とか茶色とか、なんかネイチャーな色が好きです。
はい。
ネイチャーな、自然にある色が、緑とか、
Yes.
土の茶色とか。
I like colors that you commonly associate with nature. So colors like are shades of green and brown, things like that.
Nice. Favorite country for holidays?
好きな国ですね。旅行するときに、はい。一番行きたい国はどこですか？
あまり行ったことがないんで、とにかく初めて行って印象的だったフランスです。
Yeah, I don't really go on overseas holidays that much, but the one that I first visited in my life and the one that really left the most impression on me was France.
もちろんイギリスもアイルランドも行ってみたい。
Yeah, but that said, I would love to go to the UK and Ireland as well if there's an opportunity. Wink, wink.
I am based in Ireland, so it will be a pleasure to have you here.
私アイルランドにいますので、はい、いつか小林さんに来ていただければ嬉しいです。
はい。
Now, next question. Large crowds or small parties?
大人数か少人数か。少人数でじっくりっていうのが好きですね。
I like smaller, more relaxed crowds.
Cool.
More
Favorite
intimate
season?
crowds.
Yeah. Favorite season?
一番好きな季節は
サマー、生まれた時なので、生まれた季節なので。
Summer, because that's the season I was born in.
And coffee or tea?
Coffee.
コーヒーかCoffee.
Great. Favorite movie?
Movie.
Yeah.
Braveheart.
Wow, a good one. Favorite video game?
Video game. もちろん RPG が好きです。幻想水湖伝のような。
I love Suikoden. I crazy about that. And are you playing any video games right now?
Now? 今パズルゲームやってます。RPG じゃないんですけど。
So right now I'm playing a puzzle game. It's not quite an RPG.
RPG 時間取られちゃうんでね。パズルゲームさっと終わるじゃないですか。
RPGs are so time consuming, but like the puzzle games, you can just beat them very quickly.
I agree. Perfect for short bursts.
そうですね。短期間で遊びまくるゲームなので、パズルゲームもいいですね。
仕事の支障にならない程度。
And so now we're almost at the end of the interview. Can you tell us, Kobayashi-sama, a peculiar anecdote about you or your work? Like, I suppose, tell us something that we don't know about you yet.
そうですね。誰も知らない、小林さんについて誰も知らない面白いことを教えていただけますか？
あんまりないと思うんですけど。個
性的な。
あるいはもう喋っちゃってると思うんですけど、お酒大好きなんですよ。 である日セガの同僚と今晩お酒飲みに行こうっていうお約束をした日がアゼルの、メインテーマを作る締め切りの日で、じゃあそれまでに作っちゃえばいいやとかって思ってたんですけど、これがなかなか作れなくて、もうずーっとだんだんその飲みの時間が近づいてきて、もうあと終わり10分っていうところでソナミができましたっていうエピソードをどっかでね話したような気もするんですけどね。
I think I've talked about this before, so I don't know if this is necessarily something that nobody knows about, but I like to drink, and back when I was working on Panzer Dragoon Saga, I made plans to go drinking with someone else on the Panzer Dragoon Saga team, but that day that I planned to go drinking with that person happened to be the day that the main theme of Panzer Dragoon Saga had to be complete, and I was quite unsuccessful at managing the deadline properly. So at that point, there was 10 minutes left before I had to submit the music for the game, right? Or else all hell would break loose. So 10 minutes before, I ended up making the song that we all know today as Sonami. That track, which was the main theme of Panzer Dragoon Saga. So yeah, I had to get that done before I could go drinking with my colleague. And yeah, I think that's probably one of the most interesting things to happen in my lifetime.
That's gold. That's really gold.
素晴らしいですね。
Thank you for sharing.
言っていただいてありがとう。はい。
So now this is the end of the interview. Thank you so much. This is now the last question. It's not really a question, it's a space for you, Kobayashi-sama. Feel free to share with us anything you wish. And I suppose, what would you say to your fans that are watching right now?
ではですね、最後のは質問というか、最後に一言をお願いしたいと思います。視聴者様に、言いたいことがあれば、はい、言っていただけると。はい、いいです。はい、どうぞ。
はい。パンツァードラグーンを遊んでもらって、サウンドを聞いてもらって、本当にそれも長い間親しんでもらって、本当に感謝してます。ありがとうございます。こんなにいつまでも支持してもらえるとは思ってませんでしたので、それと、ベイブウェブという心強いレーベルに出会えてソロアルバムまで出せてしまった私ですので、皆さんにまだ受け入れてもらえる限り小林沙織の音楽を、提供していければと思っています。どうぞこれからもよろしくお願いします。
Oh, I would like to thank all of the fans who played the games that I worked on, played or listened to the music that I made, who have been fans of me for so long. Thank you all very much. I think that it's been an honor to have become part of Brave Wave, a label that's very passionate about supporting game composers. And I was able to even release a solo album a while back. So I would like to continue Terra Magica, yes. And I would like to continue doing what I've been doing for as long as I can if people continue to support my work. So I hope everybody looks forward to what I have to offer in the near future.
And we most certainly are. So thank you very much. I guess that will do it. Thank you again so much, Kobayashi-sama and Daniel-sama, for joining me here today. This was really a wonderful experience, a dream coming true for me personally, as a person, as a fan. It was also my very first interview for this channel, so I have to say that I am truly honored to start with such a high note, literally I would say, with such a household name such as that of Kobayashi-sama. So thank you again for joining me here today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thanks. And I also want to thank, of course, our viewers for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, of course, feel free to like, share, subscribe, and do all of that YouTube algorithm loves. And also, don't forget to support the artist, listen to her records, AKANE, Terra Magica, and of course, listen to the whole catalog at Brave Wave. I will leave all the links in the descriptions below. And I guess that really wraps it up. Thanks again for watching. Thanks to Kobayashi-sama and Daniel-sama. And I will be seeing you in my next video. But until then, stay safe, play safe, world gamers.